You may not realize it yet, but the very moment you feel like giving up is often the moment right before God steps in. Some of you listening right now are standing on the edge of a breakthrough, but everything in your life seems silent, delayed, or completely still, and you're wondering, God, where are you? Why is this taking so long? My friend, hear this. What looks like a delay to you is often divine preparation from God. Waiting is one of the hardest things we will ever do. We live in a world where everything is instant messages, instant answers, instant results. But God does not rush His plans to match the pace of our impatience. He works in seasons. He works in timing. He works in purpose. And when God says, wait, He is not punishing you. He is positioning you. Some of you have prayed for months, some for years. You've cried, you've questioned, you've wondered if God even hears you anymore. And yet deep inside your spirit, there is still a tiny spark of faith whispering, hold on, something is coming. That whisper is not your imagination. That whisper is God saying, trust me in the waiting. When a farmer plants a seed, he doesn't walk out the next morning expecting fruit. He knows that the soil is doing a hidden work. He knows that underneath the ground, where eyes cannot see, where hands cannot reach, God is allowing roots to grow before the tree appears. Waiting is the place where roots are formed. And sometimes God has to grow your roots before He grows your blessings. Think back for a moment to the greatest victories in Scripture. Not one happened instantly. Abraham waited for the promise. Joseph waited in a prison. David waited in fields and caves. Hannah waited through tears. Even Jesus waited 30 years before He began His ministry. Heaven is never in a hurry, and yet it is always on time. But waiting is not passive. Waiting is not weak. Waiting is not standing still and doing nothing. Waiting is active trust. Waiting is choosing faith in the silence. Waiting is worshiping when you don't feel anything, praying when nothing changes, and believing when everything looks impossible. Some of you are waiting for healing. Some are waiting for direction. Some are waiting for restoration in your family, peace in your mind, or provision in your life. And maybe you look around, and it seems like everyone else is moving forward except you. But hear me, delay is not denial. God may withhold something today because the version of you that will exist tomorrow will be ready for more than you can handle right now. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, a young man came to a pastor after service. His eyes were full of frustration and disappointment. He said, I prayed every day for God to open a door. Every job interview fails. Every opportunity vanishes. I'm tired of waiting. The pastor gently replied, do you know what happens when you open the oven too early? The cake collapses. The young man looked confused. The heat didn't fail. The pastor continued, the recipe wasn't wrong. The ingredients were all there. But it needed time. Time you cannot rush. Time you cannot shorten. If you open it too soon, you ruin what could have been perfect. My friend, some of you are trying to open doors God is still baking. Some of you are trying to rush a miracle that needs time to mature. And the God who loves you too much to give you something unprepared is whispering, trust me. The timing is part of the blessing. You may feel like nothing is happening, but something is happening inside you, around you, ahead of you. God does His best work in silence. The seed doesn't make noise when it grows. The foundation doesn't shout when it is laid. The roots don't announce themselves when they stretch deeper. And yet, without those silent seasons, nothing strong could ever stand. There is a powerful truth you must hold on to. God never wastes a waiting season. When you trust Him while you wait, He shapes your character, strengthens your faith, and prepares your heart for what is coming. What you learn while you wait will protect you when you receive what you prayed for. Some of you have been asking God for a bigger blessing, yet He is using this waiting season to build stronger shoulders. Some of you want a new door to open, yet God is teaching you how to value what you already have. Some of you want answers, yet God is shaping wisdom in the quiet moments where you feel forgotten. Let me tell you, you are not forgotten. God has written every moment of your life with His own hands. He sees your tears. He hears your prayers. He knows your impatience. And if He has you waiting, it's because your story is being aligned with His perfect plan. Consider this: if God answered every prayer instantly, you would trust the blessing more than the blesser. You would rely on the miracle more than the one who performs it. But in the waiting, you learn to cling not to the gift, but to the giver. Waiting becomes worship. Waiting becomes surrender. Waiting becomes faith. You may feel tired today. You may feel discouraged. You may be on the edge of giving up. But I want you to lift your head and remember, God has never failed you before, and He will not start now. The breakthrough is coming. The open door is coming. The healing is coming. The clarity is coming. The answer is coming. Not when you demand it, but when it will bring Him the most glory and you the most growth. And when that moment arrives, when the prayer is answered, when the door swings open, when the season shifts, you will look back on this waiting season and say, now I understand. God was preparing me for THIs. So hold on, stay faithful, stay expectant. The God who began a good work in you will finish it. He is never late. He is never early. He is always exactly on time. Trust God as you wait, and you will soon see why the waiting was worth every single moment. Waiting is not punishment, it is divine preparation. And yet, when we are in the middle of waiting, it rarely feels that way. It can feel like everything has stopped, like life has paused while everyone else moves forward. You pray, you hope, you push, but nothing seems to shift. In those moments, it is easy to assume God is withholding something from you or ignoring your prayers. But the truth is far different. God is shaping you, strengthening you, and preparing you for something you cannot yet see. When God calls you into a season of waiting, He is not trying to break your spirit. He is trying to build it. He is preparing you internally for what He will eventually release externally. If He gave you the blessing too early, the weight of it might crush you. If He opened the door before you were ready, you might walk through it unprepared. So instead of rushing the process, God uses waiting to purify motives, correct direction, deepen faith, and refine character. What feels like a pause is often God's protection. Think about the way gold is purified. It must go through fire, heat, pressure, and time. The impurities rise to the surface only through the process. Without that refining period, the gold looks dull and ordinary. But after the fire, after the waiting, it becomes something precious and valuable. In the same way, God uses seasons of delay to bring hidden things to the surface. Fear, pride, impatience, doubt, dependence on people instead of Him. Waiting exposes what rushing would conceal. This preparation is not always visible. God often works in silence, beneath the surface where no one can see. Just as the roots of a tree grow quietly underground before the trunk ever rises above the soil, God is expanding your foundation before He expands your future. The deeper the roots, the taller the tree can grow. Some blessings require strong roots, and God refuses to give you something that would collapse the moment pressure arrives. Divine preparation also involves timing. God knows when circumstances around you need to shift. Sometimes the environment is not ready yet. Sometimes the people who will be part of your next chapter need to be positioned. Sometimes the opportunity is still developing. God is aligning everything with precision, even when it looks like nothing is happening. He is a strategic God, not a rushed one. His preparation is always perfect, even when it feels painfully slow. Waiting also teaches reliance. When everything is still, you are forced to lean into God more deeply. You learn to trust His voice, not the noise of circumstances. You learn to believe His promises, not the emotions of the moment. You learn to anchor your peace in Him, not in the speed of answers. Without waiting seasons, faith would remain shallow and easily shaken. There are times when we think we are ready, but God sees layers we have not confronted yet. He sees strength still undeveloped, wounds still unhealed, lessons still unlearned. And because He loves you too much to let you walk into a blessing that your character cannot sustain, He prepares you. Every delay has purpose. Every quiet season has intention. Every moment of waiting is shaping you for the very thing you have been praying for. Delay is not denial. God's timing carries purpose. Yet when you are living inside the delay, it rarely feels meaningful. It feels confusing, frustrating, and sometimes even heartbreaking. You begin to wonder why God hasn't answered yet, why the door hasn't opened, why the prayer hasn't been fulfilled. But a delay from God is never empty. It is filled with intention, precision, and unseen orchestration. What feels slow to you is often strategic to Him. A delay teaches you to separate your desires from God's direction. Many times, we want something immediately because we see only the present. God delays because He sees the entire path ahead, the dangers you don't see, the traps that haven't appeared yet, the opportunities that are still developing. His timing protects you from stepping into something prematurely. If God allowed certain things to happen the moment you asked, you might enter without the maturity, wisdom, or guidance required to sustain it. Sometimes the delay is not about you at all. It is about the environment that God is preparing around you. The right people need to be moved into position. The right opportunities need time to align. The right season must unfold. God coordinates everything with perfect accuracy. What looks like slowness is actually alignment. He is arranging conversations, circumstances, and connections that will come together at exactly the right moment. Delay also reveals what your heart truly trusts. When God doesn't answer quickly, you are forced to confront whether your faith is in the timing or in the one who holds the timing. A person who trusts God only as long as He moves fast does not yet understand the depth of His faithfulness. Delay teaches you to trust God even when He seems silent, still, or distant. It matures your faith from emotional dependence to spiritual confidence. There are times when God delays because your heart is still healing. Sometimes the blessing you want would reopen old wounds if given too soon. Sometimes God holds back a breakthrough because He knows you would sabotage it from a place of insecurity, fear, or unresolved pain. The blessing isn't denied. It's being safeguarded until you are whole enough to handle it fully. God loves you too deeply to give you something that would harm you in the long run. A delay can also be God's way of stretching your capacity. When you wait longer than expected, your ability to endure expands, your strength grows, your patience deepens, your understanding widens. When the blessing finally comes, you will not handle it with the fragility you once had, but with the resilience you developed through the waiting. Think of a child longing to drive a car. The parent says, "Not yet," not because the child will never drive, but because maturity has not yet met responsibility. The delay is not rejection, it is preparation. The parent knows the car is too powerful for someone unprepared. Likewise, the things you're praying for may be powerful, life-changing, and destiny-shaping. God is not denying you. He is preparing you so the blessing becomes a gift, not a burden. There are also moments when God delays to show His glory in a greater way. If He answered too quickly, you might credit luck, timing, or your own efforts. But when the delay stretches your faith beyond your strength, the breakthrough becomes undeniably divine. You will know it was God. His hand, His timing, His purpose. Delay sets the stage for miracles that could never happen in the realm of the immediate. Delay is not God saying no. It is Him saying, wait, something better is forming. His timing carries a wisdom far above our understanding. His timing ensures that what you receive is not temporary, unstable, or incomplete. His timing ensures that the blessing arrives when you can embrace it, handle it, and thrive within it. Faith grows strongest in seasons of silence. When life grows quiet and heaven seems still, something within you begins to stretch in ways it never could when everything is loud, active, and full of movement. Silence has a way of uncovering what noise can hide. It reveals whether your confidence rests in God or in constant activity, whether your trust is rooted in His presence or in visible progress. In silence, faith is stripped of its crutches and forced to stand on what it truly believes. Silence is uncomfortable because it removes the reassurance of immediate answers. You pray and hear nothing. You seek, but doors remain closed. You look for signs and none appear. Yet this silence is not abandonment. It is an invitation. It calls you to move from a faith that depends on outcomes to a faith that depends on God Himself. When you cannot hear Him, you must trust what He already said. When you cannot see Him, you must believe He is working behind the scenes. Silence demands a deeper faith, one that does not collapse when evidence is missing. Think of how many powerful moments in Scripture happened in silence. The Israelites marched around Jericho, saying nothing, trusting that God was doing something invisible. Elijah stood on the mountain, and God did not speak through the wind, the fire, the earthquake, but through a still, small whisper. Jesus was silent in the tomb for 3 days, yet heaven was accomplishing the greatest miracle of all. Silence is not a sign of God's inactivity. It is often the backdrop of His greatest work. In silence, the heart learns to rely on conviction rather than emotion. Emotions fluctuate with circumstances. One day you feel hopeful. The next you feel discouraged. If your faith rests on emotion, it will rise and fall with every shift in the wind. But when silence settles in, emotion can no longer carry you. You must choose to believe that God is present even when feelings fade. That decision, quiet, steady, unwavering, is where true faith is built. Silence also strengthens spiritual vision. When life is noisy, it's easy to become distracted by what others are doing, by your own impatience, or by the fear of falling behind. But when everything slows and the noise fades, your focus sharpens. You begin to see God's fingerprints in small places, notice His grace in ordinary moments, and recognize His guidance in ways you once overlooked. Silence trains the heart to recognize God in subtlety, not just in the spectacular. There are times when God uses silence to purify motives. When He delays answers, you must confront the question, do I want God, or do I want only what He can give? Silence exposes whether your pursuit is driven by love or by convenience. It reveals whether your faith is anchored in relationship or merely in results. When you continue seeking God even when He is silent, you prove that your devotion is genuine and your trust is sincere. Silence develops endurance. When everything is quiet, giving up can feel easier than holding on. But choosing to stay faithful when you see no progress strengthens spiritual muscles that comfort and reassurance cannot. Faith that survives silence becomes unshakable. It becomes the kind of faith that withstands storms, resists doubt, and inspires others. And silence deepens intimacy. When you sit with someone in quiet without words and still feel connected, you know the relationship is strong. The same is true with God. When you can sit in His presence without needing constant affirmation, when you can trust His heart without always hearing His voice, your relationship with Him reaches a depth that noise could never produce. Faith grows in silence because silence forces you to lean in, to listen with your spirit instead of your ears, to trust with your heart instead of your eyes. It is in the quiet moments where nothing seems to be happening, where God is often preparing the strongest, deepest, most resilient form of faith. God works beneath the surface before revealing the miracle. Much of what He does in your life begins long before you ever see evidence of it. You may be praying, hoping, or waiting for something to appear, not realizing that God is already moving in places hidden from your view. The foundation of every blessing is built in secret. The unseen work is always the longest, the deepest, and the most essential part of what God is preparing for you. When you look at a construction site, the first phase is digging into the ground, laying pipes, setting foundations, reinforcing the earth. It looks messy, slow, and unimpressive. People passing by might not understand what's happening because the real structure hasn't risen yet. But without that hidden work, the building would collapse the moment pressure hits. In the same way, God invests time in the parts of your life that no one else sees. Your heart, your character, your endurance, your spiritual understanding. He strengthens the invisible areas so the visible blessings can stand strong. Often we grow anxious because we see no outward progress. We assume nothing is happening. But if you could see what God is arranging behind the scenes, you would never doubt Him again. He is aligning the right people, positioning the right opportunities, closing the wrong doors, protecting you from unseen danger, and preparing paths you haven't walked yet. The silence of today does not mean inactivity. It means the groundwork is being laid with care and intention. Think of a seed placed into the soil. The moment it is planted, it disappears. It looks as if nothing is happening. But beneath the dirt, the seed is swelling, splitting open, forming roots, and preparing for life. Days, weeks, sometimes months pass before even the smallest green sprout breaks through the ground. The miracle begins long before your eyes witness it. God does the same with your prayers. The moment you speak them, something starts shifting in the spiritual realm. Roots begin forming. Strength begins developing. The miracle is already alive. It just hasn't surfaced yet. God's work beneath the surface is also about timing. There are seasons when you are ready for the blessing, but the blessing is not ready for you. There are times when the promise is prepared, but the environment around you is not aligned. God waits until everything reaches maturity. He refuses to reveal a miracle in a context that could mishandle or distort it. His timing ensures that what emerges does so with longevity and impact. Sometimes the hidden work happens inside your heart. You may believe you're ready, but God sees fears you haven't faced, wounds you haven't healed, lessons you haven't learned. He works quietly to restore, strengthen, and reshape you. If He revealed the miracle before the internal work was done, the blessing might overwhelm you. So He prepares you privately, transforming you in ways you may not even notice until later. There are moments when life feels slow because God is protecting you from something you didn't know to fear. You might feel delayed when, in reality, you've been shielded. His unseen work is not only preparation but protection. He clears dangers from your path before you ever reach them. He stops what would have harmed you, reroutes what would have destroyed you, and removes what would have distracted you. None of this is visible, yet all of it is miraculous. Even when it feels like God is silent, He is active in ways far deeper than you imagine. The miracle doesn't begin the day you see it. It begins the day God decides it. And long before it appears, it is already being shaped, supported, and set into motion beneath the surface. There comes a moment in every believer's life when the waiting becomes the greatest test of faith. It stretches your patience, challenges your understanding, and forces you to confront questions you never thought you'd ask. Yet, within that very struggle lies the sacred place where God does His deepest work. Waiting is not wasted. Silence is not abandonment. Delay is not rejection. Every moment you've spent wondering, hoping, praying, or even crying has been seen and held by the God who never loses sight of you. As you stand in this season, You may feel the weight of uncertainty pressing against your spirit. You may feel like you're walking through days without answers, nights without clarity, moments without direction. But the truth that carries you is unchanging. God is closer in the waiting than you realize. His hand is on your life even when you cannot feel it. His plans are unfolding even when you cannot trace them. What looks motionless to you is moving in ways far beyond what your eyes can perceive. Every delay has been shaping you. Every silent season has been strengthening you. Every unanswered prayer has been positioning you for something greater than the thing you thought you needed. God has been cultivating resilience, maturity, discernment, and spiritual depth within you. He has been carving away fears, insecurities, and habits that would have interfered with the blessing He is preparing. He has been enlarging your capacity so that when the miracle finally comes, you can carry it without collapsing under its weight. And though the waiting may feel long, it is not indefinite. There will come a day when the door opens, when the prayer is answered, when the burden lifts, when the path becomes clear. You will look back on the season you're in now and realize it was not a detour. It was a necessary part of the journey. The moments that felt like pauses were actually the moments when God was doing His most intricate, delicate, and intentional work. Nothing was random. Nothing was wasted. In this waiting, God has not been teaching you how to endure disappointment. He has been teaching you how to trust Him on a deeper level. Trust that isn't dependent on timing. Trust that isn't shaken by silence. Trust that doesn't crumble when circumstances don't match expectations. Trust that holds steady because it is rooted not in what God does, but in who God is. So stand firm in your faith. Stand firm even when the winds of doubt blow hard. Stand firm even when you feel weary. Stand firm when the timeline stretches longer than your strength. The God who began the work in you will complete it. The God who planted the seed will bring forth the harvest. The God who shaped you in silence will reveal in glory what He has been preparing all along. Your story is not stuck. Your prayer is not forgotten. Your future is not uncertain. God is moving, working, aligning, and preparing in ways far beyond your understanding. And when the waiting ends, you will step into something so beautifully designed, so perfectly timed, so divinely orchestrated that you will know it was worth every moment you spent trusting Him.